He was married. Once. Of course he was. You don't think I'd agree to be a fifth wife? A lot of first relationships don't work out. It happens. Why did he divorce his first wife? I don't know. I didn't ask. You're not interested. Jean was surprised. The other day Diana told her sister that she was getting married. Mike finally proposed to her. She flew on wings of happiness. Immediately afterward, Diane started calling friends and family to share the happy news and invite them to the upcoming wedding. Her sister Jean lived in a neighboring town. As soon as she heard the news, she immediately got on the bus and went to personally congratulate the bride and groom. Diana was so excited when she saw her sister. She had so much she wanted to tell her. She'd been seeing Mike for 6 months, and she couldn't get enough of him. Her love for him overshadowed everything else in the world. Mike hadn't come home yet, so the sisters had time to whisper privately for a while. To be honest, I'm a little surprised. You didn't like men like that before? Jean said with a smirk. What kind of men? Well, he's dark, swarthy, short. You used to meet only with blondes, and always shouted that a guy must be a head taller than you, remember? Oh, when was that? How long have you been looking for the perfect blonde? It turns out that brunettes are no worse, replied Diana with a smile. If you knew how hot he was. Despite the fact that they had been dating for several months, Jean knew almost nothing about her sister's fiancé. Just a few facts. Where he worked, where he studied. Perhaps that was all. She wanted to know more. And who are his parents? Jean asked. Oh, I don't really know. Mike rarely talks about his family. They will come to the wedding. We'll get to know each other there. And you do not want to know a little more about the family of the man with whom you are going to tie your life? I'm not marrying his family. I'm marrying him, Diana answered confidently. Well, that's true, too. Is this his first marriage? He's older than you. Mike was indeed 7 years older, but Diana didn't notice the difference. She liked his confidence, his ability to find quick solutions to difficult situations, his determination. She admired the strength of his character. He was married. Once. Of course he was. You don't think I'd agree to be a fifth wife? A lot of first relationships don't work out. It happens. Why did he divorce his first wife? I don't know. I didn't ask. You're not interested. Jean was surprised. Not a bit. Smiled at her sister. What if he threw her because she cooked him dinner the wrong way or looked at him the wrong way? You don't know him at all. Mike would never do that. He worships me. I'm sure he was nice to his first wife too. Well, I'd have to be more specific about that. I mean, just to keep it in mind. Maybe I will. What was her name? Maria, I think. But they didn't live together long. About a year. I'm curious. There's nothing curious about it. They just didn't see eye to eye. It happens. Did you come here to spoil my mood by talking about exes or to rejoice with me? Diana asked a little resentfully. Of course, to rejoice with you. Don't be silly. It's just that I don't really know your Mike. I'd like to get to know him better. Well, he'll be home soon, and you'll get to know him. Before she could say that, she heard the sound of the door opening. He came home from work. Honey, we have guests. Diana sang and went to greet him. Guests? He asked a little grudgingly. Don't frown. My sister is here. She wanted to congratulate us. Jean just came out from behind her back and smiled broadly. Ah, good. Hi, Jean. Hi, and congratulations to you both. Let me make my sister's wedding dress myself. Jean worked as a designer and specialized in wedding and evening dresses. She had her own salon where she sold her little masterpieces. No, we will choose the wedding dress ourselves, Mike answered calmly, surprising them both. But I insist. Jean persisted. No, I will choose Diana's dress myself. It's out of the question, he said and went to the bathroom to wash his hands before dinner. Usually, he would come home, and some appetizing aroma would be coming from the kitchen. But tonight it smelled only of her sister's perfume. Didn't you make dinner? I didn't have time, replied Diana. The rolls will be here in 5 minutes. You know I can't stand them, he said indignantly. That's why I ordered you Chinese noodles and soy sauce with beef and vegetables. I remember everything. Fine, he grudgingly agreed. I'm so hungry. Mike went into the bedroom to change into his home clothes. He usually wore only his underwear, but he didn't want to do that in front of his wife's sister. After all, she's a stranger in the house. Well, not exactly a stranger, but not in front of her. The courier came and brought the food they had ordered. They all sat down to eat. Why don't we open a bottle of wine for the occasion? Diana suggested. I don't want to, but you drink if you want to. Or maybe you can take care of us. The bride chirped, but she had never learned to open wine with a newfangled corkscrew. Diana, you're not a little girl. If you know how to drink, you should learn how to open it. She frowned a little, but went to the wine cabinet anyway, and pulled out a single bottle of white semi-sweet. She took the corkscrew, trying to figure out how to use it. Mike was always so good at it. Jean came to her rescue. "Let me do it," she said, and took the bottle from her sister. Jean managed to do it in a few seconds, but every now and then she caught Mike's displeased look. "What are you unhappy about?" she asked. Diana has to learn on her own. She's like a child sometimes. Not the most useful skill for her, Jean joked. It's better that she doesn't know how to do it. That's true. Or she'll get drunk. Mike played along with her, but it turned out kind of rude. The sisters decided to ignore it. He quickly finished his meal and went to his room to watch a little TV, and the girls stayed in the kitchen, finishing their wine and enjoying the rolls. Not 10 minutes later, Mike called his fiancée over to him. When she approached, he asked, "Is Jean coming to our place for a sleepover?" "Yes. You don't mind, do you?" "No. But in the future, please warn me about such visits." "Okay. I'm sorry. Go and get her bedclothes, or I'll go to bed and you'll start rustling." "Okay," she replied and went to get bedding for her sister. Diana walked towards the bedroom and realized that she did not like the mood of her future husband today. He had never behaved like this before. What had gotten into him? She returned to the kitchen. Jean had been on the phone while she was gone. She hadn't even heard her sister come in. Her eyes were so intense. "What are you doing?" Diana smiled. "Look, I realize this is probably overkill, but I've been playing a little detective here." "So, sure, girls often look for information about guys on social networks. It's all out in the open and you can't hide anything. So Jean decided to do a little investigation. Here, look, is that her?" Diana once saw a photo of his ex-wife in an old album. "This girl looks a lot like her." "That's her." "She does. What's in it?" "Here, look in red." There was a picture on Facebook of a pregnant Maria. It didn't seem like a big deal, but the description made her very wary. "It's December outside. I'm pregnant. Walking down the street and don't know where to go. My husband threw me out in the night and it's freezing cold outside. I may die tonight. Remember me young and beautiful." The worst part is that this was her most recent publication, made about a year ago. There was nothing else. Diana frowned and looked at her sister. Jean could have said nothing. It was all written on her face, but she did say it out loud. "He kicked his pregnant wife out into the night, and you're going to marry him." "Jean, we don't know what happened there. I can't even imagine what could have happened to do that. What if he found out it wasn't his child? It's nighttime, it's December. Even if he did, he had no right to do that. Don't you think so?" "Honestly, no. I don't understand why I should care about another woman at all. She's probably not even alive anymore. If she is, it's not Mike's fault." Diana convinced herself or her sister. "Take off those rose-colored glasses and open your eyes. You should at least find out what happened." "Why? If this Maria is alive, Mike has a child now. If not, there are even more questions. Why did this happen? How did he let it happen?" Diana thought for a moment, then asked, "What if I don't like this truth?" "Something tells me that you will definitely not like it," Jean replied. "You know, I feel like going home." "I'm sorry, I'd better go. But it's late. I'll take a cab. It's not that far." 20 minutes later, Jean left her sister. Diana looked at the photo again, reread the description, and then she couldn't stand it and went to Mike. Showing him the photo, she asked, "Is this your ex-wife?" When he saw Maria's picture, his gaze became so cold and angry. "Yeah. Is there something you want to explain to me?" "What is it? Why this happened? Why your pregnant wife was walking down the street in winter, at night? Why did she write that you kicked her out?" "Diana, this story is none of your business." He cut me off. "What do you mean it doesn't concern me? We're going to get married. I want to know." Mike sat silent for a minute, but then he told her. "That day my cousin came to visit. She fluttered in front of him as if he were her favorite relative. I noticed it right away. They were always laughing and whispering about something. I knew right away what was going on. And when I saw her take his hand, it blew my mind. First I kicked my brother out, and then we had a long fight." He was silent for a while, and Diana stood there with her mouth open in surprise. "And then what happened?" "She started yelling all sorts of nasty things at me. Couldn't stand it and pointed to the door. I told her that if she didn't like it, she could leave right now. And she did." "So, you didn't kick her out?" "I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember exactly what I said. I was in a state of inebriation." "Where is she now?" Diana asked the most important question of all. She was hit by a car that night. She didn't survive and neither did the baby. Diana blinked in surprise. This was something she certainly hadn't expected. How could it be? Were you jealous of her brother? My woman has no right to smile at anyone but me, much less take another man's hand. He cut him off. You realize this is nonsense, don't you? No, Diana, it's not nonsense. It's the way it has to be. So, if we get married, I won't be able to smile at anyone else? Your coworkers, the vegetable vendor at the market who's always so friendly, my customers. You have to realize that there are limits. And what are they? Are they very narrow? If you're not satisfied with something, I can go to all four corners. She finished his sentence offended. And when were you going to tell me this? After the wedding. No, it doesn't work like that. Diana, never mind. You're not her. You're different. I think you're very wrong. And you know, Mike, I don't want to marry you anymore. I'm sorry. That same evening, Diane packed up her things and moved back into her apartment, which she hadn't had time to rent yet. When she woke up in the morning, she spent several hours texting her friends and family again to tell them there would be no wedding. At first, she was sad about the way things had turned out, but then she realized that the universe itself had saved her from a very big mistake. I think Kevin should be mine. I love him. He loves me. You're just getting in our way. Let him go. You've got your claws in him and you won't let go. He's mine now. You're gonna have to move over. And anyway, your train has left. Kate rambled on, forgetting to breathe. She'd prepared a whole speech in advance. Some of the phrases had slipped her mind, but she thought it was pretty good. That's it. Megan asked, snickering mockingly. Wasn't that enough for you? Well, hello, beautiful. You've been waiting for me, Megan said to her supposed rival, grinning her teeth. Yes, that smile could only be called a grin. Her eyes were so full of hatred. Hi, Kate said, smiling in a friendly way. I thought it was time for me to meet you. Megan looked at the girl from head to toe. She looked to be about 25 at most. Not a bad shape, long hair, upturned chin. Yeah, men like that kind of girl. You decided, and that was your biggest mistake, Megan said as she walked into her apartment. It's plain, and it's not tasteful. It's a crummy place for a woman with a messed up head. So many bright colors and nothing goes together. Kevin's eyes were probably a mess when he visited her. Why is that a mistake? I feel like we've been needing to socialize for a long time. Kate was still smiling. Megan stepped closer. Then closer, Kate backed away when she saw her predatory stare, and immediately felt a sharp pain when the woman grabbed her chin. When it looks like you should be baptized. Kate couldn't help but notice that Megan was quite well preserved in her 40s. Of course, she, like many other empty and small-minded girls, thought that 40-year-old women were no longer capable of attracting men, and that it was time for them to fold their legs and put themselves on the shelf, where they would live out their lives. How little she knew about life. Let go, she shouted and twisted out of the clutches of her beloved Kevin's wife. Megan grinned and sat down in an absolutely tasteless chair of bright crimson color. It was horrible. Who buys such things anyway? Now you listen to me, princess. My husband is no good to you, and neither am I. Pretty soon he'll forget your name. You bet he will. Megan spoke so confidently that Kate even wrinkled her nose a little, but then she lifted her chin and asked, if you're so sure, why did you come here? Because I'm a polite person and I respond to invitations, even from shallow girls like you. You sent it to me, remember? Of course, Kate remembered putting the note in Kevin's inside jacket pocket as he left. They'd been dating for 3 months. He'd come over once a week. He'd spend the whole evening with her, and then he'd go home to his wife. It annoyed the hell out of her. He was always so tender and passionate around her. It seemed to her that their relationship should have been taken to the next level a long time ago. She had even hinted at it once, but Kevin had answered her sternly that day. I love my wife and I'm not going to leave her, not even for a beautiful woman like you. He added more gently and flicked her on the nose. That's when Kate decided that he just needed a little push. And she did it in a peculiar way. She wrote her address and name on the note and added, I'm looking forward to visiting. She'd been expecting Megan for 3 days, but she hadn't immediately found her message in her husband's jacket. Usually, her husband did his own clothes, but this time he had asked her to take his suit to the dry cleaners. So she checked the pockets to make sure there was nothing extra, and she found a little surprise from his new toy. Of course, Megan was angry at first, but then she was curious to see what would come of it. Lately her life had become a bit boring and monotonous. A little shake-up couldn't hurt. And so, Megan arrived at the address and saw before her a damsel with good looks and a completely empty head. The perfect combination for men who like to dominate relationships. Apparently, the girl wasn't so easy to compete with his wife. No, I remember everything. It was a long walk. The important thing is that you got there. You have 2 minutes. Say whatever you want. 2 minutes. The girl was surprised. It's already started. Tick-tock. I think Kevin should be mine. I love him. He loves me. You're just getting in the way. Let him go. You've got your claws in him and you won't let go. He's mine now. You're gonna have to move over. And anyway, your train has left. Kate rambled on, forgetting to breathe. She'd prepared a whole speech in advance. Some of the phrases had slipped her mind, but she thought it was pretty good. That's it. Megan asked, snickering mockingly. Wasn't enough for you. That's enough. Now you listen to me, you scarecrow. Get your hands off my husband. If I find out again that you met him, that he came here, and I'll do the following. I'll come to you again. But this time I'll come with a can of gasoline, pour it all over your apartment. Then you and strike a match, and then I'll go outside and watch your windows go up in flames. I'll call the fire department after a few minutes so the other neighbors don't get hurt. I'm a good person. Yeah, you can tell, Kate replied somewhat apprehensively. When Megan turned on the actress, it was hard not to believe her. She spoke very convincingly. Of course, the girl got a little cold feet. I think we've said everything to each other. Megan smiled her cutest smile, and it made her look even more like a crazy person. I'm going to tell Kevin. He won't let me down. Kate lifted her chin again. You will? His wife said one last thing and left. That night her husband came home a little dejected. Megan could tell by the look in his eyes that he knew what had happened. Shall we talk? She offered to sit down at the table next to him. She looked dazzling even though she walked around the house in casual clothes. She had always thought a wife should be like that. A man shouldn't look at messy hair or stained t-shirts. I'm sorry. I forgive you. All the wife said was, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I know. 15 years ago. When Megan married Kevin, she knew he was an extremely affectionate man, if not a man who liked to go after women. No, the first 2 years of their marriage had been filled with such passion and love that he didn't even look at other women. But then suddenly something happened that no woman would wish on any woman, not even one she disliked intensely. Her husband came home one day and said, Megan, I'm sorry, I cheated on you. At first, she wanted to yell at him or even punch him. But by some miracle she pulled herself together. Why? I don't know. It was a mistake. Did you like it? Why would you ask me that? Answer it. Yes, I'm sorry. Do you want a divorce? No, I just couldn't keep it to myself. If you want a divorce, I understand. She thought about it for a while, and then she told him, I realize that you're a man, that you can't always be monogamous. I can allow that from time to time you might want to spend time with someone else. I only have 2 conditions. I must never know about it again. And the second, you will never leave me. You're my husband and I'm your wife. We're together forever. I agree, Kevin replied. I hope I don't have to explain anything about contraception to you. And keep in mind that if the second condition is violated, I will personally kill you. Megan told him even more seriously, and Kevin just nodded. He hadn't broken his promise in over a decade. It wasn't that he'd gone left that often, but if he had, he'd kept it carefully hidden. That had been the case with Kate, but she'd decided she was worthy of more, and had almost ruined it. So, what now? Megan asked, watching as her husband tried to force dinner down his throat. But his appetite was a mess. I told her to go to hell. Honestly. You did. That's great. She just said and shrugged. Why don't I pour you a glass of wine to push through dinner? She suggested more calmly. Yes. Red, please, was all he answered. Kevin took a sip, looked at his wife and smiled. Did you want to burn down her apartment with her? The main thing was to be convincing. She smiled back. You should have left the theater, he said and looked at her fondly. Megan really used to be an actress. She left the stage when their 5-year-old daughter died. She had been left with a nanny, and the nanny hadn't kept an eye on the girl. The little girl fell from a swing and broke her neck. Both spouses took the loss of the child very hard. But it was harder for her. Her husband went to work, and she went into alcohol for almost 6 months. Then she was able to pull herself together. But the theater never returned, because she blamed herself and the stage. It seemed to her that if she had been an ordinary mother, like everyone else, their daughter would still be alive. But then she realized that tragedies in life happen, regardless of your occupation, so she was able to come to terms with the loss. Maybe you're right? I was thinking about it myself today. The role of Juliet I cannot play, but there are other roles, said the wife with a smile.